President Trump is touting his administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. He says ICE has been, quote, hunting down and arresting hundreds of illegal alien criminals. Officials from multiple law enforcement agencies launched a joint operation in Chicago yesterday. Now crackdowns are spanning from Atlanta to Los Angeles and even Omaha. Our chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz sat down with President Trump's border czar Tom Homan for more on who's being targeted.
So is this what we will see every single day, ending in what the president has promised is millions and millions being deported?
Yes, but you're going to see the numbers steadily increase, the number of arrests nationwide as we open up the aperture. Right now it's concentrating public safety threats, national security threats. That's a smaller population. So we're going to do this on priority base, as President Trump's promised, but as that aperture opens, there'll be more arrests nationwide.
When you talk about the aperture opening, the estimates of perhaps those who have been convicted or arrested in the past, 700,000 to over 1 million. So after you do that, then you go after everybody who is there illegally.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table, because it's not okay to, violate laws of this country.
Let's talk about the arrests so far. Numbers released the first day were over 500, and there were reports that one was a suspected terrorist, others were gang members. Were all of the people who were arrested on day one, as far as you know, convicted criminals or those who had been arrested before?
No. And let me explain that. There are collateral arrests. Where do collateral arrests happen? Sanctuary cities. And this is important we understand that. Sanctuary cities lock us out of the jails. So instead of ICE being able to arrest the bad guy, the criminal alien, in the safety and security of a jail where the officer's safe, the alien's safe, and the public's safe, sanctuary cities release them back in the community, which endangers the community, putting the criminal alien back in the community. But when we find him, he's going to be with others, most likely. Many times they're with others. If they're in the country illegally, they're coming too.
Benjamin Huffman, the acting Homeland Security Secretary, said in a statement, criminals will no longer be able to hide in America's schools and churches to avoid arrest. What criminals are hiding in schools?
Look,
middle schools, elementary schools. You going to go into those?
How many MS-13 members are the age of 14 to 17? Many of them. So, look, if it's a national security threat, public safety threat, and what you need to understand is a case by case. Name another agency, another law enforcement agency that has those type of requirements that they can't walk into a school or a doctor's office or on a medical campus. No other agency's held to those standards. These are well-trained officers with a lot of discretion, and when it comes to sensitive location, there's still going to be supervisory review. So it's not like it's an open issue, but ICE officers should have discretion to decide if a national security threat or public safety threats in one of these facilities, then there should be an option for them to make the arrest.
But someday you could go into those schools and grab people who are just in the country illegally.
On a case-by-case basis, depending who they are, what the circumstances are. It's never a zero game.
Let's bring in immigration attorney Leon Fresco for more on that. Leon, thanks for joining us. You heard the border czar Tom Homan there saying ICE is targeting dangerous criminals, but he also says, quote, if you're in the country illegally, you're on the table. What do you make of that?
Well, the problem is whenever you perform one of these operations, especially if you're going into a home where there are many people, or you're going into a work site because that's the only location you know where that person is, if you encounter people who are maybe trying to thwart the arrest and they also are in undocumented status, it is possible that that collateral group of people will be apprehended. I don't think you're going to see 50 to 60 people apprehended at a time at a specific location for two reasons. One, those are long-term planning, resources intensive operations. And two, you can't deport all of those people quickly. The people they can deport quickly are people with criminal convictions and people with orders of removal that are already executed. And that's why they're looking to get these people first. It's not really so much of a humanitarian thing. It's more of a, how do we get a more bang for the buck situation? And so those are the people you can actually quickly remove.
Now, Colombia's president says migrants must be treated with dignity that every human being deserves. The Department of Defense released images of migrants being handcuffed on a military plane to be deported. What's your reaction to that? Is that normal procedure? And what rights do these migrants have throughout the deportation process?
Well, obviously, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution says that every person should be free from any sort of governmental increased state of danger that's created by any act the government takes. So if they're doing anything on a flight that's leading toward increased danger to the person of injury or disease or sickness or anything like that, that shouldn't be happening. Now, I think what's probably happening here is there's been for many years a specific group of people who do these enforcement and removal operations, and now more people get added. They're not up to speed with all of the protocols and safety measures and everything else that happens, and so you start seeing these kinds of flare-ups that happen. All of this probably should have been done through diplomacy and should have been discussed, but we had this public flare out instead.
President Biden and President Trump deported roughly the same number of people in their first terms. President Obama deported more than either of them in his first 4 years alone. So does this new crackdown really mark a major escalation?
I think the problem is they actually are doing as much as they can be doing with the resources that they have in place and with the pipeline that they inherited. The question is going to be, even when Congress ends up passing that larger reconciliation bill and they end up giving billions of dollars of more resources, are those billions of dollars going to actually translate into tens of thousands of more people being apprehended, detained, and removed? That's going to be the thing to look out for. But in the meantime, until that bill passes, you're not going to get that same sense. So what they're trying to do instead is create media buzz so that people are scared and decide to go home themselves.
All right, immigration attorney Leon Fresco, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.